I was able to grow 70,000 followers in 60 days and did $30,000 in 15 days using my system, the Brand Suite method. And it has completely changed how I think about both content and business. I went from spending my entire life performing for other people, D1 soccer at 3 different universities, competing internationally, then a psychology degree, a master's, and a 9-to-5 that looked good on paper, but it felt like nothing. I knew I wanted to build my own thing, I just had no idea how. To now, traveling the world, building an online business from wherever I want during the month, and working on one thing and one thing only. I'm going to show you how content is the vehicle to that, and I'm going to teach you how to approach it differently compared to 99% of other creators. This is going to let you align with what you actually want to achieve. The fundamental is, you're building a personal brand that attracts. About 3 months ago, I was still working a 9-to-5. I had a safe monthly pay slip, but I just felt stuck. I didn't know how to create my own thing, and I didn't know how to scale. I felt unsatisfied, overqualified, and I was trading my time for money, and ultimately hit a ceiling I just couldn't break through. Then I started online coaching, and even though I was working for myself and making good money, I just couldn't take it that one step further. I was teaching women how to trust themselves and follow through on what they say they do, while feeling completely disconnected from my own life. I initially started online coaching to build a business I actually enjoyed, a life I actually wanted to spend my days on, and I ended up in a routine that felt just as limiting as the one I left. I was spending 10+ hours in a villa by myself in Bali, thinking that this was going to get me where I wanted to go. And yeah, I was still hanging out with my friends, but there was more in me. Every morning I'd wake up and I'd feel that weight, the weight of pressure, the weight of anxiety. How the hell am I going to sustain this? Knowing I had a full day ahead, answering the same exact questions my clients asked me every single day. And to be honest, I felt alone and it was a bit draining. And there was a moment where I realized I was building a life that looked good on paper, but in reality I felt trapped by my own business. Here's what I learned. Most people in the online space are focused on metrics, hitting volume, promoting one number, but very few people are building something that is actually sustainable, something they align themselves to, something that is going to last the test of time. Think of it like this. Most people think that content is based off performance. They look at it as views. They look at it as a mandatory metric. They're trying to say a certain thing, act a certain way, and fit into what they think works. Most of the time, people are just playing characters because they think that's what's going to get them famous, what's going to get them money. But the reality is that your personal brand should just be a mirror. It should reflect who you are, how you act, and what you actually think on a daily basis. And when you build it the right way, you don't just attract the right audience. You attract people who genuinely connect with you, and not a version of you that you're trying to maintain or pretending to be. So in this process of finding out who Eabha actually is, myself and the team at Done For You built what we like to call the Brand Suite method. And it's built around one core principle: creating content around who you are, what you believe, and how you actually live your life. Instead of performing to get results, I focus on building a brand that actually corresponds to how I think and live on a daily basis. I'm highlighting one core message, but I'm delivering it in multiple ways. Let me explain. The whole aim is to design experiences instead of forcing someone into one offer, one product, one funnel. The first part of the Brand Suite method is what I like to call the show don't sell. This matters because most people are trying to tell you what they sell. They're trying to tell you what they're doing to get the desired outcome. They're trying to tell you instead of actually showing you how it's supposed to be done, which means there's no real results and no real evidence being built between you and the person on the other side of the screen. Instead of telling people what you know and what you do, you need to start showing it. This is demonstrated through your actions, the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis. It highlights the process in real time, so people actually get to see your expertise instead of telling them directly. As you can see, this is one of our clients turned coaches, Tiara. In the first month of working with us, he grew 15,000 followers. And since then, he has scaled to almost 50K. He also has a successful coaching business at the age of 20 years old. Now, Tiara doesn't tell people what he knows just because he's a great online fitness coach. He shows the proof and the purpose. He demonstrates by showing his journey. He highlights the process. And what this does is build a loyal, authentic connection that generates a cult-like audience to his name. And luckily, we caught Tiara in the early phases, because what usually happens when people try to tell you instead of showing you is that the trust is ruined. Because at the end of the day, that is what people are buying from in 2026. No one is buying from businesses anymore. They're buying from the people whose values and principles they align with most. Now, the second part of the Brand Suite is what I like to call the concierge. This matters because when you show the journey, you attract the right people. But if you don't guide them, they'll stay a viewer and never turn into a follower, which means they're just watching from a distance and never really becoming a real opportunity. Here's how it works. Instead of creating random pieces of content on a day-to-day basis, you build around one core message. But the principle is, you need to allow these people to engage with that core message message in different ways. Whether that's your day-to-day documentation of showing the journey, personal stories from experiences you lived, past or present, or going deeper into breakdowns, you can genuinely give attention and detail to. This is our client Kayla. Kayla came to Done For You with no content direction. Her content pillars were scattered. No page direction, no formatting, no proof of purpose. As the best female B2B closer in Australia, you would have no idea. She was posting parts of her life, but there was no clear path for her audience to understand who she is, what she's about, and what she's trying to achieve. So we shifted the page to showing what she had to offer, instead of telling the audience what she did in the past. We started to structure the content from a documentation point of view. We documented her journey in tech sales on a day-to-day basis. That gave a clear insight into her day-to-day life. This doesn't mean she didn't have value to give. Of course she did. But it was demonstrated in an engaging, organic way for the audience to resonate with, because they're just like you. Done For You started with her at 4,000. As a result, in the first month she grew 15,000 followers, and in the first 3 months of working together, she did $200,000 cash collected. This is where it really connects, and where show don't sell really comes into play. The first principle: show don't sell, attracts the right people. The concierge directs that audience to where you want them to go. It provides the clear path, deeper than just having surface level connection. It allows the viewer to go one step further and become the follower you want. And finally, the third and final part of the brand suite is the organic content ecosystem. This truly matters because without an ecosystem, your content relies on constant effort, constant volume, and constant output. But with an ecosystem, everything starts to compound. It draws from the previous post and provides sustainability. Instead of treating one piece of content separate from the other, every single time you post, you build a system where every piece of content connects. You take that one core idea you have and you turn it into multiple pieces of content across multiple days. You revisit it from different angles and you start to create layers of content that drive engagement over a long period of time. This is our client Colby. He came to Done For You in a very specific industry, the fascia release industry. We started with Colby at 0 followers, no income, and no clear direction. And at 21 years old, he now has over 100,000 followers and is making 30,000 USD for a low-ticket community per month. Now, the way we did this, instead of copying other creators like you feel you may be doing right now, we shifted from him telling people what to do to showing the process and showing what they actually thought on a day-to-day basis. Then we structured the content to work with one another. Every piece of content leads down the funnel. You get attracted by one, you get brought into another, and now you're in the ecosystem, continuing to consume the content day to day, wanting to know what the next piece of advice is going to be. The way we did this is through what we like to call the funnel. Top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Once we outline your ICP, you need to become extremely clear on how that client feels on the days of the week. That's going to allow you to understand your audience on a deeper level. What is the emotion that the audience is feeling on a day-to-day basis? For Colby, a fascia release is an older demographic. Understanding that the age difference doesn't matter, depending on your industry. But having a clear understanding of what that person feels day to day allows you to create content targeting that specific emotion. From there, we implemented top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom funnel. Top of funnel is to attract attention. Middle of funnel is to provide personality. Bottom of funnel is to provide proof of purpose. And that is what we like to call the organic content ecosystem. Within 3 months, Colby grew from 0 to 100,000 followers. And as mentioned before, he now does $30,000 a month at the age of 21. And this worked because Colby stopped trying to target everyone. Because when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. Instead, he understood what his ICP was, what the person was feeling on the days of the week, and started speaking directly to them. That not only attracted his ideal client, it started to convert, and it converted fast. And finally, when you do this right, and all 3 parts of the brand suite come together, when you start documenting your real life and allow your content to start attracting rather than forcing people in, everything starts to change. You are no longer trying to come up with content because you live it on a day-to-day basis. It lets you naturally create content effortlessly every single day. You stop chasing clients because you have people coming to you who are already bought into your values and your core principles instead of the business alone. And over time, it starts to compound. And trust me, this is what happened to me. Because your content not only builds trust, your audience starts to become more aligned with who you are, what you're about, and what you're trying to achieve. And your business starts to grow in a way you actually feel is sustainable in the long run. You're building a business now that you don't hate, but love. Now here's the thing. The brand suite isn't more complicated than this. It's actually simpler than you think. Before, when I started posting content, I had no structure, no clarity, and no intent with what I was doing. I was just posting for the sake of posting. But after I built and discovered what my core principle was, I was able to provide one clear message and one message only. I was able to turn that into a system where every piece of content connected and drove traffic to my page. I started to document what actually aligned with me from within, not what I thought was accepted by other people. It not only attracted the right attention, it allowed me to stop selling. It allowed me to stop pushing every single day. And instead, I had people coming to me who genuinely wanted to work with me. That is where the 70,000 followers in 60 days came from. Not from posting more, from posting one thing properly in a system. And what I learned is that everything improves together. Your content gets clearer, your audience sees that, and they become more aligned. And the opportunities you're dreaming about, the ones you write down in your journal, they start to come without you having to chase them. Now here's the thing. If you want to build something like this for yourself, it doesn't start with copying your framework. It starts with how you actually see the world, how you see content creation as a whole. So the first step is how to identify your core message. For example, my core message isn't to inspire people to create content, because content is the vehicle to drive your dream life. I want to inspire them to build a business they're actually satisfied with. I want them to trust themselves. I want them to live a healthy life, travel, make money online, build core memories, be their true self, because that is exactly what I want for myself. And what I find in this industry is that most people copy what's performing. I mean, I've done it myself. I mean, we're all guilty of copying people's content every now and again because we see a certain format working for them and we think it's going to work for us. But the reality is, you need to stop copying and start becoming the original creator. And that is exactly why their content and your content never converts, because it's built on someone else's perspective, not your own. Now let's think about it. It's like walking into a hotel and being put into a room that doesn't suit you, doesn't suit your needs, and doesn't suit what you were there to stay for. It might look good from the outside, but that doesn't mean it's a good fit. So instead, you need to ask yourself, what do I see differently about this space? What are people going to think my page is for? What approach do I naturally take that others don't? What don't I see online? What have I actually gone through that shaped how I think about things differently than other people? Because everyone is one of one. No one can live the stories that you live yourself. You need to remember that. And do you remember the foundation of show, don't sell? The core principle there is that you don't want to sound like the expert. You need to remember that. You're letting people see into how you think based on what you show. And the easiest way to do that is by breaking it into 3 parts. Component 1, how do you express your thinking? This is how your ideas show up in your content, how you communicate your experiences, your perspective, what you're actually building, and what you're seeing in real time. Component 2, now you go deeper. This is where you create different ways for people to engage with your content. So depending on where they are in their stage of life, they can connect, they can understand, and they can resonate with your journey and your story. This allows them to move deeper into what you're trying to sell them without you telling them. That is the core principle here. And this is done by choosing the right content formats. I can't stress that enough. And finally, component 3. This is how everything connects and compounds. This is what turns those individual posts that you're posting right now, and I know it's true because I did the same, into a system that compounds over time, where ideas build on each other, reinforce one another, and continue to work for you over time instead of working against you. And once these 3 parts are in place, this is where you finally have built an authentic personal brand. You aren't just creating content anymore. You are building a system where your content is clear, your audience is finally aligned with what you're trying to achieve, and your content is finally creating opportunities you deserve without you trying to force them every day. Now, once you build a framework, the final step is to test and refine. This is done through real execution on a day-to-day basis. Because the reality is that no system works perfectly in theory. It only becomes real once you start using it. Start testing it, start making improvements. So the goal is not to make it perfect from the start. It's to start applying what is necessary to build a long-term sustainable brand. You take your core messaging, structure it into components, and then you begin to create content around it, not against it. You finally see what connects, what feels natural, and it starts to reflect what you're actually thinking. And as you go through that process, you just refine it. You adjust how you express the ideas. You simplify what feels forced, and you double down on what resonates. And eventually it isn't something you're just trying to follow, because it just becomes natural. It's just how you operate on a day-to-day basis. That is what we like to call the brand suite method. And to be honest, this is how I built my personal brand. But I'm going to be clear, I'm still refining it to this day. There are things that are constantly working very well, but there are also things that I'm refining to improve even more. But what I found is that when you stop copying other people, I know it's tempting, and stop doing what works for them, you start building something based on how you actually feel, how you actually see things in the world. Because the reality is, only you can see through your eyes. Everything then becomes simple. Your audience becomes more aligned, and opportunities start to come from the right people as you attract them. So if you're trying to build something like this for yourself, please don't start with an intense strategy, because you won't know how. Start with your perspective first. Build a simple structure and ecosystem around it, and then refine through taking action. And finally, if you want to see how I execute this in real time, you can follow along or reach out to me on Instagram at EabhaOM. But only do that if you're looking to build something like this for yourself.